Thank you, Julie. Julie. That's what I used to call her before I could talk. Rob. Rob, who used to scare the living daylights out of me when I was a little baby. He'd tell us these ghost stories. I couldn't get to sleep. I want to say a special thank you to Mimi, Silbert, and to Abe, and the Delancey Street family for letting us be part of their family today. I want to introduce my sister-in-law and the next generation of Rosses who are here with us. And I'd like to ask them to stand up so you can meet them. Kay, who's a wonderful teacher. And sister. Had the pleasure 2 nights ago of seeing that raw spirit from her father and her grandfather in action on a volleyball court. She was mean and tough and aggressive and, yes, single-minded in her pursuit. Shannon Ross. My eldest niece, Heather, who will be helping those of you who'd like to join in a community eulogy later this afternoon. Recent graduate of UCLA, gifted dancer, special niece, Heather. And finally, I'd like to introduce Fred's grandson, who already is exhibiting some of the same interests that I shared with my dad. I went to City Hall on Monday to meet a woman who was close to my dad and who babysat for me. Kay Ueda, I see you back there somewhere. Thank you. Yeah. Would you please stand again, because we didn't see you the last time, Kay Ueda. Thank you. I didn't even know that there was a rally going on. And the voice I heard when I came out of the parking lot was that woman in motion, Dolores Huerta. And as I walked towards the front of the stage, some big kid grabbed me, big bear hug, goes, "Uncle Gib." And that was Brandon. He was there because of his real interest in American Indians. I guess a lot of us are losing sleep lately because of my dad. I woke up this morning singing La Cucaracha, and I wasn't sure why. And I called my mom, and she told me why. She said, "Gib, we had a nickname for you when you were about 18 months old, and it was El Borrachito de la Main. It means the little drunk of Main Street." It seems they'd had a party one night, and I'd gotten into the drinks. And in my crib, I sang my own rendition of La Cucaracha. So Mom and Dad knew how to party. I too have wonderful memories of my dad. I remember when he'd come home on a late Friday night, he'd be exhausted. Maybe he was coming from Brawley or Visalia or wherever he'd been. But when I was 5 or 6, the next morning I couldn't wait to see him. And so I'd go running into his room, and I'd jump on that bed. And Mom tried to say, well, at least let's get him some juice and a cup of coffee, you know, then he'd be ready to play. But he loved to play and wrestle. Some of you mentioned discipline. My brother and I, as we watched him in the hospital, we were remembering how big his hands were. And those fingers. And how hard it must have been before we had touch-tone dial for those big fingers to go round and round and round. When I'd crossed the line and it was time for him to spank me, I thought up a little delaying tactic. Part of it because I was so scared about what was to come. I said, Dad, wait, I got to go to the bathroom. That'd take a little bit of the sting out of it. One thing real early he taught us was about the worst thing a person could have was race prejudice. That was the word they used in the 50s. And I remember maybe I was 7 or 8, and my father's mother, who wasn't as sensitive as he was on the issues, was kind of surprised when her youngest grandson said, Nana, are you prejudiced? He made us laugh. One of the first dichos I remember was at the dinner table. I think my sister Julie had decided she didn't want the next helping. And all of a sudden, my dad goes, pues, entre menos burros, más elotes. Fewer the donkeys, the more corn to go around. There's one story that hasn't been told, and my mom reminded us of it. He could laugh at himself, and he was so dedicated to learning Spanish that he went to extremes. And one day while he was driving, a policeman pulled him over. And the policeman said, what in the world were you doing? You were weaving all over the place. My dad looked up a little bit sheepishly, and he pointed at his Spanish language flashcards. He said, I was studying my flashcards. Just as well, all of you, he believed in hands-on. And unfortunately for us kids, it was the same thing with the yard work. We had a big yard. And Dad'd be out there with us. Julie was the best organizer. My brother and I used to get irritated with her because about every hour on the hour, she'd organize a friend to call. And she'd have to leave. But after the second call, though, my dad would say, wait a second, I think something's up here. In high school, his love of literature was wonderful to share. Remember, we studied Hamlet, and we went to see Olivier's performance of Hamlet together. And he came to my English class, and the next day, my teacher came up to me and she said, oh, your father is so good in English literature, and he's so handsome. Today she said, what a hunk, right? And that he was.